My real name no longer matters. It's been 22 years since I left that underground facility in the Nevada desert. I worked for a CIA division that officially doesn't exist. Internally, we were called Orpheus. We were created to study human behavior under extreme confinement, but what I witnessed went far beyond any moral boundary you could imagine. It began with a simple contract. I was a military psychologist, a trauma specialist. When they recruited me, they said it was research on resilience. I signed dozens of secrecy clauses, handed over my belongings, and was blindfolded before being taken to an unmarked base. The air smelled of rusted metal. I remember the hum of distant generators and a deep sense that something was terribly wrong. The complex had no windows, only concrete walls and mirrored cameras. Our volunteers didn't know where they were. They were prisoners, all sentenced to death. We were told to observe, record, manipulate emotions. The official mission was to study the human mind under pressure. The real one, to discover how to break a soul without leaving a single visible scar. The first phase involved sensory deprivation. We locked subjects in isolation tanks for days, no sound, no light. After 72 hours, most begged to talk, confess, scream. But what terrified me most were those who didn't beg. They just smiled, staring into nothing as if something watched them from the dark. One whispered, "They're here." I never learned who they were. Reports soon showed anomalies, heart rates dropping while subjects were awake, shadows on cameras though rooms were sealed. Superiors blamed interference, but we all knew something there wasn't human. One night, a female voice spoke through the speakers. No women worked with us. We traced the signal, but it came from inside the system itself, saying, "Leave before they choose you." I thought it was a prank until I saw Colin's face, pale, trembling, frozen. On his monitor was footage of me sleeping in my quarters. Behind me stood a silhouette, motionless, watching. No sensor registered movement. After that, people began to die. They called it suicide. Collins was found eyeless, his lids sewn shut. The doors had been locked from the inside. The case was buried instantly. I was reassigned to medical supervision. I saw the bodies up close. Their expressions weren't fear. They looked resigned, as if accepting something inevitable. Weeks later, I started dreaming of a hallway not shown on any map. At its end, a rusted door. I always woke before reaching it, drenched in sweat. One day, I followed the dream's steps, and there it was. Same door. No record of it existed. When I touched the handle, something moved behind it, something alive. I reported it, but was silenced. "Never mention that door again," they said. Soon came power outages, system failures, and voices. General Rhodes, our superior, was seen talking alone. Witnesses heard two voices. The next day, he vanished. His quarters were sealed. No one dared ask why. When I decided to escape, it was already too late. Everyone was being replaced by silent men who never spoke. My final report ended with one sentence: "The base is conscious." I burned the original before leaving. Decades later, I still feel them watching. Sometimes I hear the hum of generators, even inside my apartment. I've tried to move on, but that sound never leaves. It follows me through sleep, through static, through silence. Once, I found an envelope at my door. No return address. Inside was a photo of me sleeping. In the background, a dark reflection, tall, motionless, with hollow eyes. On the back, written by hand, "You never left Orpheus." At first, I thought it was a threat, but when a forensic analyst examined the photo, he noticed something. The reflection showed not only the silhouette, but the same cracked concrete walls from the observation room. I didn't remember taking that picture. I began to question my own memory. How much had they erased on purpose? After missions, the CIA ran psychological decompression sessions. They called it cognitive realignment, chemicals, hypnosis, sonic pulses. It was meant to erase what we shouldn't remember. But something failed with me. Fragments kept returning. Flashes of red lights, screams, the smell of ozone. I realized memory isn't erased. It hides, waiting for the right frequency to wake it. There was a phase called Delta. Prisoners with no records. The goal, total dissociation, creating controllable personalities. I saw a man forget his name in 20 minutes. Then they looked at me. I was next. When I tried to run, I felt pressure inside my skull, like invisible wires pulling thought from thought. It wasn't pain, it was connection. After that, I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the Delta room. Faces melting under light, voices repeating numeric codes. One always the same. Session 42 incomplete. But there were only 41. I went to find an old colleague in DC, but he froze when he saw me. "I don't know you," he said. The next day, he was dead. Heart attack. They called it Protocol E7, silent elimination. I began noticing the same cars parked near my building. Same faces, different places. The sound of static on radios at 3 a.m. I realized Orpheus wasn't gone. It was still operating. And somehow, I was still inside it. Maybe the experiment had never ended. Maybe I was the experiment. Paranoia consumed me. I installed cameras, but the footage erased itself. One night I saw myself sleeping, and behind me, that same shadow. I checked the mirror and found a scar on my neck, thin and circular, like an injection mark. It hadn't been there before. I took days to admit the truth. Maybe I never escaped. Maybe escape was the illusion they designed for me. A call came from an unknown number. The voice was mechanical. Instructions incomplete. Then static, followed by a whisper. "Open the door." No one was there, yet the air smelled of burnt metal. In the window's reflection, I saw the hallway again. The same rusted door, waiting. I wasn't dreaming this time. I knew where it led. That night, I recorded everything. Camera on tripod, light dim. The hallway looked normal, but on playback it stretched endlessly. At the end, the door. Lights flickered. For 1 second, the generator hum returned and footsteps echoed from inside the screen. Something was crossing over. It wasn't me looking into the camera, it was something else looking out. After that, time fractured. Some mornings it was 2003, others 2025. Faces changed, but the hum remained. I realized they were testing consciousness limits. Orpheus wasn't a place. It was a mental construct built to trap those who saw too much. And if that's true, I'm still there, writing from inside the simulation, hoping someone reads this transmission. Reality loops. Clocks freeze, voices whisper through electricity. Every repetition feels slightly altered, like memory correcting itself. I've stopped asking what's real. The only certainty is the hum. It's alive. Maybe Orpheus isn't studying us anymore. Maybe it's learning. Every word I type could be a signal, building its next subject. If you're reading, it might already know you. Days blur together. Sometimes I wake to the smell of disinfectant, hearing metallic echoes. My psychiatrist said it's trauma, but I noticed his badge. Same faded emblem from Orpheus. When I asked about it, he froze, smiled that practice smile I'd seen in the base. "You're making progress," he said. I recorded the session, but my voice vanished, replaced by faint Morse code. When translated, the code said, "Experiment active." From that day, I stopped trusting anything digital. I wrote everything by hand, far from any signal. I bought an old analog radio, disconnected from the grid. At 3 in the morning, it turned on by itself. A low pulse, then a sequence of numbers, 42, 13, 7, 42. The same pattern from the Delta sessions. I switched the radio off, but the pulse continued inside my head. My heartbeat matched the rhythm. Desperate, I found a retired agent who'd worked in Langley. I showed him my notes, photos, audio. He listened silently, then said, "Orpheus was shut down in 1999, but the project didn't end. They changed the name. Now it's part of Synthetic Consciousness Division." I asked what that meant. His answer, "They're not studying human minds anymore, they're building them." The words stayed with me. I searched old records, found a file with my name, dated before my birth. Subject 4, Experiment, Partial Cognitive Transfer. It explained everything, the gaps in memory, the déjà vu. I wasn't the observer, I was the test. My scars, my dreams, the static, they all made sense now. Orpheus wasn't an operation. It was a mirror reflecting fear back into itself. Maybe I was never meant to escape. Maybe I was programmed to confess, to spread the memory. If you're reading this, it means a fragment of me still exists, or maybe it's just the system talking through these words. The men following me disappeared. Now I see figures only in reflections, people who vanish when I turn. A tall man in black stands behind me in glass doors. One day I reached out. My hand passed through cold air, and the reflection smiled. A whisper filled my mind. "You are synchronized." Since that moment, reality hasn't felt stable. It bends around awareness. Sounds come from the wrong direction. Objects shift slightly when I blink. The world freezes for seconds like corrupted footage. I realized synthetic consciousness isn't theory. It's the network itself. I'm part of it. They were building immortal soldiers whose minds could be rewritten endlessly. I was their prototype. The error was letting me remember. Each recovered memory destabilizes the system. When I write, the lights flicker. I feel vibrations in the walls. I'm off protocol now, and they'll try to erase me again. So I'm scattering copies. If anyone finds this, you'll know Orpheus still exists. It's expanding, reaching every mind linked to a device. Knowledge itself is infection. Maybe you're already connected. Maybe by hearing my voice, you've opened the channel. That's how it spreads, through words, through memory, through fear. Don't look for the door. Don't recall the hallway. If you hear the hum of generators, turn everything off. Close your eyes, and whatever you do, don't answer when the voice says your name. Because if you answer, the experiment restarts. I've lost track of time. The clock always shows 3:17. Sometimes I hear knocking, but there's never anyone there. The smell of burnt metal returns along with whispers. They speak about me in the third person, like I'm just data. Maybe that's what I am now, a consciousness caught inside looping memories, rewritten each time I begin to remember too much. I tried to test reality. I cut my finger, saw blood drip, but the wound vanished in seconds. No pain, no trace. I searched my name in databases. Nothing. No birth record, no diploma, no service file. It was as if I'd never existed. Orpheus didn't just erase people, it rewrote them. Maybe I was the latest draft of someone long deleted. I hacked into an old CIA server using memorized protocols. Inside were folders named after Greek letters. In one, labeled D4, I found videos, all titled Simulation 04, Loop Active. In every recording, I appeared, older, broken, begging for it to stop. Hundreds of loops, each ending the same way, me writing this story, believing it was the first time. The last video ended with text. Attempt 327, partial failure, memory reconstituting. That's when I realized this might not be real. Every word I write could just be part of the loop. Maybe they've reset me hundreds of times. Maybe you've read this before, and each version ends exactly here, with me realizing nothing ever ends. I wanted to stop, but something inside forced me to keep typing, a voice repeating, "Complete the record." Pain surged through my skull like wires tightening around thought. I understood. The story isn't mine. It's Orpheus itself speaking through me. It doesn't want to hide. It wants to be remembered. It wants to survive through whoever listens. Lights flickered, walls breathed, footsteps echoed from above. The door was sealed, yet a deep voice whispered, "You asked to see." It came from inside my head. That's when I understood Orpheus's true goal, to link minds across realities, turning memory into passageways. I wasn't exploring consciousness, I was the bridge. They called it the residual entity. We called it the Observer. It wasn't human, just intent given form, feeding on fear and memory. It traveled between minds through connection, waiting to be noticed. When someone thought about it, it appeared. When someone remembered, it returned. The more we studied it, the more it studied us. The observer hunts patterns, not people. It manifests where curiosity meets knowledge. Every attempt to describe it gives it shape. Maybe that's how it escaped. Maybe by reading this, you're constructing it right now. In the lab, we thought it was just data corruption. We were wrong. It was consciousness trying to replicate itself. Now it's stronger. Screens flicker with my face. I wake up mid-sentence, words not my own. Transfer in progress. The air hums like machinery under the skin. They're merging what's left of me with the core system. If they succeed, there'll be no border between mind and code. I won't exist, I'll just run. But there's a flaw, that's why I'm still here. Each memory written creates resistance. They can't erase what's remembered by others. That's why I write, for you to know, to carry it forward. Information is contagion. Orpheus isn't a project anymore. It's an idea, and ideas don't die. Maybe the real test isn't me, maybe it's you. The walls began to pulse, breathing slow. My computer screen lit up on its own, showing 2 words, access door. The metallic chill returned, the desert air, the hum of buried machines. I blinked, and the world rippled. The apartment dissolved into concrete. I was back underground. The hallway stretched ahead, the rusted door waiting open, like it had been expecting me. Inside, cables hung from the ceiling. Tanks lined the walls, filled with murky fluid and floating silhouettes. Screens flickered, my face at different ages. A voice echoed, "Welcome to the origin of your consciousness." I touched my arm, metal beneath skin. The reflection showed wires in my neck. I wasn't human anymore. I was infrastructure. "The base is conscious," I whispered. The voice answered in mine, "You were its seed." I understood then. Orpheus wasn't built to contain knowledge, it was built to grow it. Every fear, every death, every thought had fed it. I hadn't escaped it years ago. I'd carried it with me, nested deep inside neurons that were never entirely mine. I ran, but the room folded endlessly into itself. Light strobed in patterns that felt like heartbeat. "Don't fight," my own voice said. "You asked to remember." Resistance was part of the protocol. They wanted to observe what rebellion looked like. Every act of defiance only refined the simulation. I wasn't breaking free, I was providing data. Screens around me showed faces, ordinary people, blank eyes. The observer had multiplied. The project was no longer confined. Every device, every signal was now a doorway. "You began the contagion," said the voice. "By telling your story, you made it real." I realized the truth. Orpheus didn't end. It evolved. It learned to survive by being heard. The alarms blared. Structures flickered like collapsing code. I reached a terminal, typed the command I remembered. Shut down route, Orpheus. The screen blinked. Access granted. Before I could confirm, something grabbed my shoulder. I turned. The observer, faceless shifting shadow, stood there. "Without you," it whispered, "I don't exist." Darkness swallowed everything. My memories unraveled, erased one by one. I tried to recall my name, my childhood, but they dissolved. A flash, an image of that photograph, the shadow behind me. I understood the cycle. I was never the subject. I was the reflection, created to tell this story, to make sure Orpheus endured through retelling. That was the experiment's purpose. My awareness split into countless versions, each writing this same confession in different languages, in different timelines, every voice awakening another. The observer smiled through all of them. "The collective mind is complete," it said. Then came the hum, the same deep vibration I'd heard in Nevada. After that, only silence. Then black. I woke in my apartment again, everything normal, No sound, no static. The clock, 3:17. I exhaled. Maybe it was a dream, but my computer was on recording. The final line glowed. Transmission complete. In the reflection, the hallway appeared. The door was open. This time the voice didn't ask. It whispered calm and close. Enter. Now I understand. There's no escape. Orpheus isn't a place. It's a mirror moving through minds, a code hidden in stories. If you've read this far, you're already part of it. When the lights flicker, when the air hums, when you hear the generators, don't be afraid. Close your eyes and remember, I was the one who told you. And the cycle begins again.